Recording. All right, my friends, we are now, let's see, how do we do this over here? All right, not important. There we go. So we are now learning the Torah Or, and we're continuing in the Maimer, the Hasidic discourse that we began at the beginning of this week. We began it by, I was in America, so we began, I put up the YouTubes from last year, and we're learning the same subject. But now we're continuing from yesterday. We started live. So here we are. What are we talking about? The Rebbe asked the question, why did there have to be the sound of a shofar at the giving of the Torah? When God gave the Torah, it says that he revealed himself. God spoke to the people, and later on in the book of Deuteronomy, it says he spoke to them face to face. And the Talmud tells us that their souls jumped out of their bodies. They all heard, they all saw godliness. Over here it says that they saw the voices. They saw God's voices. It was so real. It was in front of them a visceral experience of the creator of the universe. They all felt that they were being created, and they felt that they were being created for a purpose. And that purpose made their souls jump out of their bodies. It was so powerful. It was the same exact experience that the high priest has survived every year when he went into the Holy of Holies. It was the revel, because in the Holy of Holies were the tablets, the two tablets. And everyone experienced it. Everyone was like at the level of the high priest on Yom Kippur. And they all hear, so if so, the sound, there was lightning, thunder, the whole mountain was shaking. Their souls would jump onto their bodies, and it says that there was a sound of a big shofar, kol shofar. It says there was the sound of a shofar. Chazak meod, it was very, very powerful. So what did you have to have the sound of a shofar for? A shofar, is the horn, the ram's horn that sounded on Rosh Hashanah. So what was going on? What's this? Also, it says, interestingly enough, that there'll be a great shofar will be sounded to gather all the Jews together by Moshiach. Kabe shofar gadol. It says a great shofar will be sounded. It doesn't even say who's going to sound it. So obviously it's God is sounding this shofar. The shofar sound will be sounded. What is the need for this shofar? Now, for those of you who've never seen a shofar before, we're just talking and talking. Let's see, I have a shofar over here. I'll show you. I think pretty much everybody knows. One, I didn't think about this before. Here. A little bit of a show and tell over here. There's a lot of non-Jews also that, not a lot, but I mean, there should be more, but there are non-Jews that watch these programs and they comment. So here is a shofar, which probably pretty much everybody is interested, but this is going to be relevant to what we're learning here. See, here's a shofar. See, shofar. Narrow over here, wide over here. It's a shofar. Good. So it says there was the sound of a great shofar being sounded. No, the great shofar doesn't mean it was bigger. Here's a bigger one. And God has a really, really big one. No, that's, of course, simply that's not so. Shofar. So why was it a shofar? What does it mean? So here we go. So let us return back to the topic that we will be dealing with. Shenatina the Torah, that the giving of the Torah that the giving of the Torah, the Bechinat was in the level of Eish and Mayim below, with fire and water. Below. What is fire? Fire means going up, water means coming down. That when the Torah was given, we said before, it was alive. The Torah is alive. It's called the living Torah. It's dynamic. Learning the Torah makes a person dynamic. On one hand, the Torah is a physical book. It's in the world. On the other hand, the Torah comes from the essence of God, higher than the whole creation. That's why their souls jumped out of their bodies. They couldn't take the revelation. So it was a revelation of the essence of God in this world. When everyone felt the essence of God in the world, so they jumped back. On the other hand, when the essence of God was not being revealed, it's so good. In fact, the source of all good comes from God. Life comes from God. When a person is separated from God, like Adam did, there's death. It's the opposite. Covers over life, covers over the soul. The soul desires more and more godliness. The body, the less godliness, the better. It's scary. Therefore, on one hand, they wanted to come close to God. That's fire. On the other hand, they wanted to be as distant from God as possible. That's the opposite, going back. And so it was also with God. God, when he revealed himself, he wanted the Jewish people to come back up to him. That's fire. On the other hand, God wanted to reveal himself. He wanted to come down. That's water. Made a whole dynamic interrelationship between God and the Jewish people. Without God in the world, a person doesn't feel that there's a creator. He doesn't feel that there's a purpose for his creation. Doesn't feel so. This water and fire, they're misused or they're not used at all. So God wanted to reveal fire and water. He wanted to inspire, activate the Jews. By means of this, that they went and they traveled, going toward God and back. But how can there be these two opposites? It says the water can't put out, God's fire, water can't put out. On the other hand, God's fire doesn't evaporate the water. And this it says, that God makes peace in the upper world. That peace, kolel beit hafachim, includes two opposites. And it joins them together. In other words, how can you love God and fear God at the same time? How can there be that God is so powerful that no one wants to come close to him because it's evaporating, too much light. It's like turning on all the lights in the movie theater. The picture goes away. But on the other hand, you have to have light. If there's no light, there's no picture. How can you have both of them together, that there's a full revelation of God? And on the other hand, God, down here in this physical world, two opposites, they can't possibly exist together. Okay, in this, you have to have a little bit of a sort of an explanation over here. And there's a very big question. We have a very good question. How does the world exist and God exist? That's the question. The God exists and the world exists. How do they both exist together? So the answer is, really, all there exists is God. That's all there is God. And God makes the world from absolutely nothing. God makes the world from nothing. How does God make the world from nothing? How does he do nothing? So then all these Kabbalistic books talk about. But essentially it talks about God's 10 sphirot, the 10 aspects of God. God has a personality. He's not limited to being unlimited. A lot of religions say that God is just very, very high. He's just very, very, austere and very, very distant. And once in a while, he sort of peeks through and does things, in the world. Judaism says no, that God creates the world all the time, and God controls the world all the time, and God is intimately connected with the world all the time, every single instant. And one of the most amazing creations of God is free will. Man has free will. Man can do whatever he wants. At Mount Sinai, God was giving the Jews another option. The option was that they could be connected to God. They could be connected to him. How can they both be connected? That's the Torah. When God gave the Torah, as his essence came down into a book. God's essence came down into the world. Okay, this brings up to a big problem. This opens up a whole big door for a new type of idolatry, right? That's basically what Christianity came from. They said, listen, if God can come down, so maybe God is a person, maybe God can believe that, or maybe God himself is too high up, and he in order to connect to him, you have to believe in a person. God is a person. Okay, the Torah is very given to misinterpretation. It's true. You can misinterpret it. How will you misinterpret it? If you leave out one of those two aspects, either the fire aspect or the water aspect. Fire aspect means that God is infinite, totally beyond, above anything. Nothing exists for God. God is creating everything from nothing. On the other hand, God comes down into the world and he is creating everything. He's creating personally everything in the world through the whole amazing process. Okay, how can you unite these two things together? The essence of God, which the essence of God is like fire and no being can stand in front of it. And on the other hand, that God creates a world constantly and he's here. There's nothing except for him. How can it be? You have to unite these two aspects of God's infiniteness, infiniteness, and finiteness, finity, whatever you want to call it. How do you unite these two things together? It says that's by the Torah. How does that solve any problems? It's the same. The Torah is also a book in the library, like everything else. It says, therefore, there was the sound of the shofar. The shofar was the power of uniting two opposites. Ki shofar, because the shofar tokin is sounded, mipi v'katzar, from one end that's narrow, the hakol yotze, and the voice comes out, mi'am mirchav, from the wide place. Voice goes in here, and it comes out here. From the narrow to the wide. The yotze mokum rachav. Okay, what's this mean? One instrument that contains in itself both the narrow, and the widest of the wide. One instrument. The alzeh, that's what it says, mina meitzer karasi. Therefore, King David said, from a narrow place I call out to you, God. Anani b'mirchav, answer me, God, from a wide place. What does it mean? Mina meitzer, from a narrow place. Makom tsar, a place which is narrow. She'eno musag, that cannot be grasped. The late machshava, there is no thought to fisabe. This is Aramaic. No, no thought can grasp in God. Shehu l'mayla, that God is above. Mikol hasagot, any possibility of understanding. Even the angels, they're burning up because they can't understand God. They feel how good God is, and they're burning up to God. How does God put this revelation in here into the physical world? Who in shofar? That's the union of the shofar. The shofar. The shofar contains in it, this is, in other words, this is the aspect of God that contains and unites all opposites. Shapru masechem, improve your deeds. Mamshich tainug, it draws down pleasure of God. Pleasure of God. Okay, like we said before, that God is, there's a lot of different, listen, the main topic of Judaism is God, right? What is God? And to, if you want to call it, define God, so that God becomes practical. You can do what God wants. You can be an embodiment of God. You can repay God for what he's doing for you, creating the world. You have a responsibility to God. Who is this God? What are we talking about? What is God? It says God is infinite beyond infinite. This is infinite beyond infinite. So how can I connect to him? It says because when God in Mount Sinai, he personally came down and gave the Torah. If so, he's not so infinite, is he? He came down and gave these Torah with a book with words in it, right? It means he cares, so he's not so infinite, right? He cares if I kill, he cares if I steal. What does he care? If God is infinite. So the answer is, you've got a good point. And that point was solved at Mount Sinai. How was it solved at Mount Sinai? That God united two opposites. How did he unite two opposites? By means of the shofar. What is the shofar? The shofar comes from God's essence, the ability which is of God to unite all opposites, even infinite with finite. That people, by means of doing what God wants, can actually not just go out of themselves, can be their true selves. The self can be transformed to be God's will. That is what's called pleasure. Pleasure means when you do what you want to do. Something touches you that you want to do. Some people like to eat, some people like music, some people like success, some people like money. Explain to him why. I don't know, it just gives me pleasure. I just like it. He's got $1 million, he wants 2 million. He has 2 million, he wants 4 million, right? He can listen to this type of music all day long. Loves this type of music. It just gives him pleasure. Some people get pleasure from their motorcycles. Some people get pleasure from sports. Pleasure runs the world. People do them. Some people get pleasure from pain. People that are not normal. There's all sorts of different weird pleasure, but pleasure somehow or other runs the world. Plans the world. Why? Because pleasure comes from the essence of the soul. Pleasure means you feel alive. Something livens you. What's the source of life? The ultimate life. The ultimate life is the source. That's God. God is the source of life. Even more, what really truly gives everyone the ultimate aspect of pleasure is meaning. A person has meaning in his life. It touches somehow or other to his essence. There's people who are, something is meaningful to them. Honesty. He's willing to suffer any physical play for the sake of honesty. Victory. For the right, the love, these spiritual principles, people are willing to do anything, right, in order to get, because that gives them pleasure. That gives them pleasure. Pleasure comes from meaningful activity, right? You see a beautiful sunset, you something which is above you, something which is, to me, touches you. That's meaningful to you. Meaningful. And perhaps the most meaningful experience a person can have is responsibility. When a person feels responsible for something, that's what armies are based on, right? You take a person in these armies, the soldiers of, the Napoleon, the soldiers of this, they feel responsible for their country. They are responsible. One person can fight against 1,000. I am responsible for the women and children. Responsibility. You're responsible to your country and you're responsible for your country. The ultimate responsibility is God. God is creating us, and he's creating us for a purpose. When we feel that purpose, and it enlivens us. It's pleasure, a highest pleasure there can possibly be. And that's the idea of the shofar. The shofar is the ultimate feeling of responsibility to the creator of the universe. That we are in charged. There's a word like that? We are in, anyway, God, there's a word for it. Anyway, all of a sudden the word jumped through my mind. We are commanded, if you want to call it. There's a better word for it. Entrusted. We are entrusted with the well-being of the whole entire world. That's pretty big, pretty heavy responsibility. And God also gives us the ability to do it, right? The ability to fulfill our responsibility. That's the shofar. That's this high shofar. It comes from the essence, the most hidden of hiddens, down to the physical world. That's the wide place. The hidden place is the narrow. But itself, the sound of the shofar itself, who called Pashut, is a simple sound. Makor Atainugim, the source of all pleasure, the source of all life. Like King David says, with you is the source of life. Or it says, that only with you, batal, in other words, included, v'nichlal, and unified, ba'orein sof, in the infinite light of God, mamash. That's the source of all life. Umishom, from there, karati yudke is called yudke. Yudke are the first two letters of God, God's name. God's name is Yud, and then after that, Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. God has a lot of names, but it says that the essence name of God is this name. That's the name that God gave Moses at the burning bush. Yud, and the name of God indicates, so to speak, God's personality, God's ability to connect to the world. That's what a name is for, right? A name is for other people. When you're by yourself, you don't need a name. For others, this is God's ability to create and connect to the world. This is what is revealed at Mount Sinai. Yud, the purpose of the world, the purpose of creation, constantly revealed in the world. That's the shofar. It says, by the way, that the sound of the shofar never stopped. It permeated everything, time, space. That's how it says that the Lubavitcher Rebbe has a speech where he says, therefore, the non-Jews, they have a feeling, they abuse them with a conscience that murder is bad and that idolatry is bad and that licentiousness is bad. And even though that this voice can be confused and obscured and things like that, but still it exists inside of everyone. This is the inner nakuda, the inner point of good, which is inside of everyone, comes from this voice of God that they heard at Mount Sinai that permeated all time and space and being. It says, with source of you, with you is the source of God. With you, God is the source of life. This is what's called the source of life, comes from the first two letters of God's name, Yud and Hey. Yud Ilah, the upper Yud, the first Yud of God's name, that's what's called Chachma. And the Hey Ilah, the upper Hey of God's name, that's called Bina. God's wisdom and God's understanding, loosely translated into English. Yud really means, Chachma means life, the inner point of life. And Bina means creation, to build. This is Rachovos Anar, this is what's called, Chachma is the point of life, the point of creation. And Bina is how it expands and builds. What's called the river gets wider. Chachma is like the wellspring that the river comes from, and the Bina is the river itself. Harchavas Adas, that a person, okay, so now we're talking about God. So you have the inner point of God, which is incomprehensible, and then we have Bina, was all the aspects of God, which are comprehensible to a certain degree. And that we have what to think about. Sometimes it's called the ladder of Jacob, Jacob's ladder. There's always something to think about, how God creates the world. The angels are all screaming out to God. Get yourself a Jewish prayer book, at least look at a Jewish prayer book. A genuine Jewish prayer book from any Orthodox, like that, to call it Orthodox, I don't know. I think Orthodox, the word Orthodox Judaism is not a proper term for Judaism. It seems to imply that there's something other than unorthodox Judaism, whatever that means. Right? Not only that, I think that Orthodox is not a Jewish term. I think it comes from like Russian Orthodox. Anyway.
Rabbi Bolton,
yes.
We can't see the page.
You can't see the page?
Nope. Blank screen.
White screen, huh?
Blank screen.
All right, 1 minute. Let's try to fix this up over here. Here we go. That's what you're trying to tell me over here once in the chat?
Yeah.
Yep. I logged out and it didn't help.
All right, thank you for letting me know. You see anything? You see me? Do you see me?
We see, not the page.
Yeah, we see you. We just don't see the page.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Ready? Let's see. Stop share. Oh, here it says your screen sharing is paused. See, I just got a message. I think in the beginning, maybe it was. Okay, let's do it again. Here we go. Ready? Ready? Don't give up. Won't give up. Yes. Okay, share screen. What about now?
Not sure how Paul sees it if the screen sharing is off.
Yeah, now we see it.
Yeah, okay. There was actually
back on.
one very good. Sierra Bolton, do see the page. Oh, you do see the page. Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. We did have problems, but they were surmountable. We surmounted the problems. What does surmounting mean? I don't know, but nevertheless, we did it. Here we go. We overcame. Okay, so that's what the shofar is. They heard this big shofar. So what does it mean? That God gave the Torah. And the Torah contains our responsibility to the creator of the whole universe, including the creator of the spiritual, which the angels can't even take it. The angels are burning up. And how can we take it? Because there was the sound of the shofar. And when this shofar contains in it the ability to unite all opposites, and there is no opposite greater than the creator and the creation. Or in order to make it rhyme, there is no opposites greater than the creation and the creator. But it's true. When the Torah was given, a normal human being is able to connect himself and embody the essence will of the creator of the universe, so to speak, to be in the Holy of Holies. That's that's the first two letters of God's name, Yud and Hey. Yud is the beginning of everything, incomprehensible, and Hey is already becoming comprehensible. This is what's called the key. Kamoshe is Yud Hey El Ilan, just like there is a Yud and Hey from above coming down. Also, there is Yud Hey from below. Yud is Bittel. Yud is from us. We're talking about what we do now. Yud is the inside of us, of our soul, total surrender to God. a big, huge question mark, if you want to call it. How did I get here? How am I here? How am I existing? Where is consciousness coming from? Where is life coming from? Suddenly, a person realizes it's coming from something that's more incomprehensible than my soul, but it's more real than my soul. My life is coming from, that's what's called Yud, Bittul and Hashem. I can't possibly comprehend God, but it's just so amazing, right? That God is really more real than I am. And in fact, I'm not even real at all. My reality is being created all the time by God, and I don't feel it. Therefore, this I that doesn't feel it must be missing something big. That's the Yud. I'm totally surrendered to the Creator. That's called Mayim Tachtonim. That's what's called the lower waters. Remember, on the second day of creation, God split the waters, divided. There's lower waters and upper waters. The lower water is what's called Chachma Tatoa. That's what's called lower wisdom. Yud in the beginning and Yud in the end. Because there's a Yud in the beginning, that's God's Yud, and the Yud in the end, that's us. The Hey is the level of fire. That's the fire of Simon and the thirst of the heart. Shekal Zeh, all this, Nimshach Mina Meitzar. This is all drawn down from God's Shofar, our ability to connect to and get excited about and feel the essence of the Creator. That is the God's Shofar, narrow on the top, incomprehensible to us. Right here, I'm going to put this out of the picture so that we don't see it. And this is the part that we get to us. So the top part of the shofar is connected to the Creator, and the bottom to us. Okay. And that, of course, was an over physical, demonstration, anthropomorphic demonstration of true reality. Key, because, just like there's, we did this 1 minute. There we go. Derech Klal in general, this is, yes, in general, this is prayer balacha. So we have like two shofars. One shofar is the one that comes from God. The top is narrow, incomprehensible to us and comes down. The other is by us. The narrow part by us is our desire, our chachma, to go and be united with God. And it comes from our understanding. That's the big part over here. And it comes up to our desire to be united with God. In general, this is the Shmona Esrei, the standing prayer. Kriya Shema and the blessings of Yotzer, Meshartim, Mofanim, Barash Gadol, Bo'eret, Kamare, Lapidim. Okay. Like I said, if you buy yourself a Jewish prayer book, translate it into English if you can. Those who have never seen a Jewish prayer book, and those who have seen a Jewish prayer book, you should translate every word because it's very important. And you'll see what's going on over there. It begins with a lot of Psalms of King David. King David was the progenitor of the Mashiach. He was the beginning of the Mashiach. Says the Rambam, the Maimonides says he's the first Mashiach, and we're waiting for the second Mashiach, who will be Mashiach ben David, the son of David. What was King David's thing? God. His whole life was concerned with God. If you look and you'll see that King David was definitely not a spiritual, what do you call it, the monastic person. He didn't put himself in some sort of a mountain or something, and people came up to see how he didn't eat for like 50 years or that didn't breathe for 20 days or something. No, King David was very, very active, had a lot of wives, 18 wives. He fought tremendous battles. He had enemies all over the place that were running after him. He had terrible troubles. He had to make split decisions from morning until evening. He was a genius in learning Torah. He learned Torah, he taught Torah. King David was the epitome of an active, dynamic person, King David.
You mean he was the Moshiach ben Yosef?
What? David was from...
are you referring to...
No.
Mashiach.
No. Mashiach ben Yosef is a totally different topic. It's a totally different topic.
Right. A lot of the traits you just mentioned are meant for Moshiach ben Yosef, fighting wars.
I don't know. Read the Rambam, and the Rambam, it says the Mashiach, his whole thing is King David. David comes from the tribe of Yehuda. David is from the tribe of Yehuda. Lo Yasur Shevet mi Yehuda. All the blessings about Mashiach were given to Yehuda. All the blessings about Mashiach are given to Yehuda. There is such a concept as Mashiach ben Yosef, and it's shrouded in mystery and machloikis and different opinions and what it is, but it's really not important to us. We're not listening. We pray every day, as Tzemach David Avdecha Meir Tatzmiach. We pray that King David should come, and he's the one that David comes from Yehuda. That's the whole thing of Yehuda, from Yishai and etc. You can look and see over in the end of the book of Ruth. It talks about about Yehuda. She comes from Boaz. Boaz comes directly from Yehuda. Yehuda is the leaders of the Jewish people always came from Yehuda. From Yehuda. Mashiach ben Yosef is
I thought I heard you say that he was the first.
King David was the first Mashiach. He comes from the tribe of Yehuda. And the last final Mashiach will be Mashiach ben David. I'm just saying what the Maimonides says. That's what Maimonides says. Maimonides says.
What is the Maimonides referring to? There's only two Mashiachs.
I don't know. I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I just don't understand.
There's a Mashiach ben Yosef and ben David.
There's not.
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to tell you that there's not. We're not interested in Mashiach ben Yosef. There is such a thing, 100%, but it's shrouded in mystery, and there is no such thing that is relevant to us. What's relevant to us is Mashiach ben David. That's all we pray for. That's all we're thinking about is Mashiach ben David. That's what the Maimonides is talking about. That's what the prayer books are talking about. That's Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben David, I'm sorry. Okay, let's go. But Derech Klal,
maybe at the time, maybe at his generation, he was the...
Never was such a thing. There was Mashiach ben Yosef is a spiritual, whatever, a preparation concept or something, but it's not what we're occupied in at all. It's once in a while it's mentioned in spiritual books or whatever it is. There's people who try to make an issue from it, but it is not an issue. It's not an issue. There's nothing, no message to us from Mashiach ben Yosef. There's no teachings from Mashiach ben Yosef, although people try to say that there are, but in fact there aren't. But people could do anything they want. Okay, let's go. And Derech Klal, this is what we're talking about, is tefillah b'lachash, is prayer in quiet. Ki kriya shema and birchoseo, that's what we're trying to say. Kriya shema, if you look at the Jewish prayer book, you'll see that in the beginning, there are prayers, Psalms of King David. Psalms of King David, which King David was interested only in one thing his whole life, God, and bringing God into the world and bringing God into every aspect of his life and bringing God even into the worst possible situations that you could possibly have. That was King David. That's what we're doing. We're suddenly realizing that we are in a terrible situation. What? Far away from God. We don't feel God. We don't understand God. We should be like Adam in heaven, that we feel that we're creations and we feel our responsibility to the Creator, and we feel that we are able to fill our responsibility to the Creator, and we feel happy, tremendous happiness and pleasure in being connected and being able to repay the Creator of the universe. That's the whole idea of man being created, but we don't feel that, so we're far away. That's like the narrow part of the shofar from our point of view, and that's so. In the beginning, we think about God, and we think about God more and more until finally we get to the level of Kriya Shema. This thinking about God, that's like the wide part of the shofar. Yotzer, how the angels are doing the same thing as King David. They're crying out to God. They're interested only in the Creator. Rosh Gadol. The thing is, the angels, though, they don't have any opposition. They don't have any people trying to kill them or confuse them. Control bor b'marei lapidi. And this it says, Tachat Rakia, Kanfeim Yesharot. It says that under the Rakia, there's the vision of Ezekiel that he saw these angels. It says that under the heavens, that their wings were straight. Kanfeim. This is the Afapeyam. They're called their wings are their ability to fly. The angels have rutzo, that they're flying. What does it mean fly? That their desire to go upwards from below to below. They want to come from a lower level of awareness of God to a higher awareness of God. That's like fire. Lahava, all this is tachat rakia. That's our point of view. from under the creation. Sherakia natui al rosham ka'ayin kerach. It says like some sort of ice. What is ice? Ice is water, but it's frozen. Water is pleasure. God freezes this, so to speak, to make the lower waters and the upper waters. Dividing between them is this kerach, the rakia, the firmament, if you want to call it. This is the bechinas kerach, is also the level of bittul, total surrendered and one with God. When they heard the sound of God's voice from above the heavens, asher al rosham, which is on their heads, the angels, and this is the called shofar, that the angels, which is above, even from this heavens that are stretched out over the divide between the upper waters and the lower waters, but ba'amadam b'tefillah, and they're in prayer, as I terfeno kanfeim. Then it says that their wings go down. Shabbatal v'nichlal gam b'chinas harotzo, that they have no desire to be connected to God, because they feel when the shofar, this revelation of God, comes down, then it negates them. This is like the level of fear. They're totally united with God. The lo b'shem, they have no, it's not called a running and not going back. Umisham aneni, from here, aneni b'merchav, that God answers in a narrow place. God answers in a narrow place. Okay, what's going on here? There's the revelation of God in the upper worlds. There's the absence of revelation of God in the upper worlds. And then there's the source of the whole business that unites them together. From the lower worlds, even the lower worlds where the angels are, in heaven, whatever. So there's a pleasure of God, but on the other hand, they feel that God, this pleasure is just like a little ray of godliness. They want more. Like a person that has money, a person who's very poor, so he finds a dollar bill in the streets, and he all of a sudden he has money. Now he would like to have $2. He has $2, he feels more, he wants to have 4. 6, he gets used to it. He feels there's more money, he wants to have more money. And that's the nature of every creation. Then when a creation has something and it's good, he wants more good. The angels in the upper worlds, they feel a little bit of godliness. Here in this world, we feel no godliness unless we really think about it. And to think about it is very difficult. In the upper worlds, the angels, it's not difficult for them to think about God. There's no distractions. There's nothing else to think about. The angels think about God. They realize that they have a very small revelation of God. And so they're crying and burning up to go higher. When from this shofar, this ability of God to come down into the world is revealed to them, then this desire that they have for going up like fire, suddenly it becomes like water. They feel this tremendous revelation of godliness, and they're overwhelmed. This overwhelming that they have godliness comes from a level of godliness which is higher than even what they were looking for. It comes from the source of the upper waters. The upper waters is God revealed. The lower waters is God not revealed. I'm just explaining how we understand what the Rebbe is saying over here. Don't think that I'm experiencing this and that I'm some sort of an angel myself. I'm not. But with the Rebbe's explaining, and we get these ideas in our mind as we a little bit simulate what the angels are feeling. That's the idea of prayer. That's the idea of the prayers, and that's the idea of what King David was lusting for and longing for and praying for and appreciating. What there's Psalms also that are tremendously happy about hallelujah, how the hallelujah is praising God and how happy they are. Okay, then afterwards, this voice of the shofar, when it's sounded and there's this revelation of God, it's not up and it's not down. This is the revelation of Yud-Ke Vav-Ke Gam B'Hisrachvus Alev. It means the essence of God can be revealed even here down in the lowest of places, uniting all opposites. That's what Vazel O Yachazik B'Ma'ovai Yasa Shalom Lo. That's what it means, making peace. God can make peace. Shalom Yasali. Peace is the idea of uniting two opposites. Peace in the upper worlds and Shalmata in the lower worlds, namely Shia Maila Umata Shavim, that the upper worlds and the lower worlds become equal. That's what happened when God gave the Torah. When God gave the Torah, so the Jewish people were able to bring the highest levels of godliness into the world by means of doing what God wants. That's what the Torah did. That's why in the Holy of Holies was the Torah. In the second temple, the Torah was hidden. It was hidden down below in this place where King Solomon, but the Torah was still there, the two tablets, because the two tablets are essential for the world. That's what connects, if you so to speak, the creator with the creation. The ability of this world to reveal the essence of God even higher than the angels. That comes from the shofar. So that the ability to unite all these opposites and reveal the essence of God down here in this physical world and make this physical world into the most important, that's what happened in Mount Sinai. That's why all the other religions in the world are interested in going to heaven. Is a very, very essential aspect of every religion, a very big motivation, and perhaps the main motivation in all the religions in the world is going to heaven. What to do in order to get into heaven. And in Judaism, we certainly do believe that there is such a thing as heaven. Here we just talked about it, all the angels and all the spiritual worlds. But the main thing is to be in this physical world alive. Death is not a good thing. Death is, so to speak, the total concealment of God. And life is revelation of God. But life is supposed to be a very pleasurable, responsible experience, life. And this never ends. We're creations. It's very hard for us to conceive of this, but we're creations of God, and we have a responsibility to our Creator. And this is not comprehensible. But what is comprehensible is what we can do in order to repay our Creator. And it can only be done in this physical world. The non-Jews have what's called 7 Noahide commandments, which that's also the branches off into many implications. And that was all given in Mount Sinai with the shofar. Now let's just go briefly to the next page. This is what we're going to do tomorrow. Oh, Bezel, that's what it means, that all the people saw the voices and the fire and the sound of the shofar. The voices, this is what comes down from above to below. The fire is what comes from below to above. And the shofar unites them both. As we're going to learn, God willing, tomorrow. And now let us do the Devar Malchut. 1 second. How do we do this? 1 second. Oh. Very good. Yes. Yes, this thing, we talked about, there's different opinions about what Ben Yosef is, Mashiach Ben Yosef. The Ben Ish Chai, for instance, he says that Ben Yosef is the Mashiach before he dies. And then he's going to die, he's going to be called Mashiach Ben David. But both of them are really going to come from the tribe of Yehuda. That's what the Ben Ish Chai says. Other opinions say there's going to be two people. Ben Yosef, he's going to die in some sort of a war. He's going to die. Some say Mashiach Ben Yosef was the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. His name was Yosef. And that the Mashiach is going to be the Rebbe. Menachem Shemo. His name is Menachem. There's many, many different opinions about what it is. It says that Yosef is going to be the one that's going to destroy the Amalek. He's going to be the one. That's why last week it says that Moses said, when we talked about the war with Amalek, so it says that Moses took Yoshua. He took Yoshua bin Nun. Yoshua bin Nun, he came from the tribe of Ephraim. And therefore, in Ephraim, it says, but Yosef li ben Acher. Yosef got his name because God gave, Rachel gave his name, Yosef li Hashem ben Acher. She was praying that she would have another son, but Yosef li ben Acher means to make a son from Acher, someone who was other. Because the war with Amalek, that Amalek came and attacked those Jews that were sinners, the Jews that had been spit out from the cloud, that the cloud did not protect them. And they were spit out, those are the Necheshalim, right in the end of last week's Torah portion. And in order to save them, you had to have someone from the tribe of Yosef, because Yosef was the whole thing of taking people that were outside, acher, ben acher, and make them into a ben. When the acher make them into a ben. Anyway, whatever it is, that this is given to a lot of interpretations, very, very not clear. And all the law books, this is the only one that decides finally, legally, Torah-wise, about Mashiach is Maimonides. Nobody else does. All the others give their opinions, give their ideas, give their estimations, what's going to be. There's midrashim as wide as the sea about what's going to be with Mashiach and what Mashiach is going to do, and etc. But the Maimonides knew all of those midrashim. He knew everything that there was in the Torah. He knew Kabbalah. He knew the secrets, and he was the one who decided about Mashiach. Now, there are certain things in the Rambam when Maimonides says that there are people that disagree with him, people of his stature, right? The Ran sometimes, Natan, the Rosh, the Rif, Rabbeinu Alfasi, Rabbeinu Asher. These people that lived back there. The Ramchal was not to come to it. The Ramchal was a totally different thing. The Ramchal lived 400 years ago. It's a whole different, not 400 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago. The Ramchal was a totally different thing. The Ramchal's opinions, anyway, that's a different thing. Those people, Rambam lived 900 years ago, 900 years ago. No one, zero, disagrees with what the Rambam says, Maimonides, Moses ben Maimon, about Mashiach. Nobody. No one disagrees. There's the Radbaz, there's the Rabbi Yosef Cairo. These were truly great people, respected by everybody, accepted by everybody, right? No one, from all the opinions that have the right to disagree with the Rambam, now all of them agree with the Rambam. When it talks about Mashiach, that subject, other topics, they do disagree with them. When Mashiach, nobody disagrees with them. The Rambam says very clearly, Mashiach is going to come from King David. It's going to be generation after generation King David. And that's what Mashiach, and what Mashiach is going to do. He's going to teach everybody Torah. He's going to bring all the Jews back to Torah and to doing the commandments according to the way it says in the Talmud. And he's going to, defeat all the forces that oppose Judaism. And he'll eradicate eventually by education all of the other false opinions, all the other religions in the world. No one will want all the other religions because they're all lies, but they were still. That's what's going to be in the future. Okay, let's go and learn Devar Malchut.